My name is Amanda Hayes, I'm 26, and I live in Denver, Colorado. Before I get into this, let me just say, this is a story I never thought I'd share. It's raw, it's personal, and honestly, I'm still trying to process some of it. But maybe, just maybe, someone out there will relate to what I went through, or at least understand how complicated family loyalty can get. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is where you are. I love seeing how far these stories reach. Okay, let's start at the beginning, because like most disasters, this one didn't come out of nowhere. It built up, quietly over years. My sister Rachel is 3 years older than me. Growing up, she was the golden child. You know the type. The one the relatives fawned over at family gatherings. The one who got straight A's without trying, who made captain of a soccer team, who got elected prom queen without campaigning. Rachel was beautiful, still is actually. Tall, with this effortless blonde hair that always fell perfectly. Big green eyes that could charm anyone. The kind of girl who made you feel lucky just to be standing next to her because maybe, for a second, some of her magic might rub off. And then there was me, Amanda, the smart but quiet one, the dependable one, the invisible one. At least, that's how it felt. I was the kid who cleaned up after dinner without being asked, who tried not to cause trouble, who did everything right but never quite got noticed for it. My parents weren't cruel. They loved me, I guess. But their pride, their attention, their hope, that all seemed to belong to Rachel. I spent so much of my childhood in her shadow. She'd walk into a room, and it was like the air shifted. Everyone's eyes went to her. I used to think maybe that was just the way it was supposed to be. Like, maybe every family had a star, and the rest of us were just meant to be background characters. I didn't resent her for it, not really. At least, not back then. It was just the way things were. When Rachel met Mark, it felt like the next chapter in her perfect story. They met in college. He was the sweet, soft-spoken guy who studied engineering and always held the door open for everyone. Mark wasn't flashy. He wasn't the life of the party. But he was kind, solid, the kind of person you could count on. And he adored Rachel. I mean, he looked at her like she hung the moon. Their wedding was straight out of a magazine. Rachel in a lace gown that probably cost more than my car at the time. Mark beaming at her like he couldn't believe his luck. My parents crying happy tears, talking about what a perfect match they were. And me. I stood beside her as maid of honor, watching it all unfold, thinking, wow, she really does have it all. 4 years, I admired their relationship. They seemed so happy. They bought a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood. Got a golden retriever, of course. Took weekend trips to wine country or the mountains. Hosted these perfect dinner parties where everything was just right. The food, the music, the way they looked at each other across the table. I used to sit at those dinners and wonder what it would feel like to have what they had. That easy companionship. That love that seemed to glow between them. But here's the thing. Even the most beautiful paintings can have cracks in the canvas, ones you don't see until you look too closely. And over time, I started to notice little things. Tiny hints that maybe, just maybe, the perfection was more fragile than it seemed. Sometimes, when Rachel thought no one was watching, her smile would falter. I'd catch a glimpse of exhaustion or irritation in her eyes when Mark said something harmless. There were moments at those dinner parties when her laughter felt forced, like she was playing a role. I remember one weekend trip we took together, a girl's getaway, and she spent half of it glued to her phone, texting someone she wouldn't name. When I asked, she brushed it off, said it was work, said I was imagining things. And maybe I wanted to believe that. Maybe I needed to believe that. Because Rachel's marriage was a fairy tale I held up as proof that good things happen to good people. That love like that was real. That it was possible. And if her marriage wasn't perfect, what did that mean for the rest of us? I kept those little doubts to myself. Shoved them down. Convinced myself I was reading too much into nothing. After all, nobody's perfect. Every couple has off days. Right. But looking back now, I think part of me always knew. I think I saw the cracks and chose to ignore them because the alternative was too painful. Because if Rachel's life wasn't as golden as it seemed, then maybe everything I believed about her, about love, about family, maybe it was all just an illusion. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? Family loyalty. It's this idea we're raised with, that blood is thicker than water, that family sticks together no matter what. That we protect each other, even when it hurts. Even when it's wrong. I used to believe that without question. Until the day I found myself standing at a crossroads, forced to choose between the truth and my family. Forced to ask myself what loyalty really means, and whether it's worth the price. And that's where my story begins. It's strange, really, how a single moment can split your life into before and after without any warning. I can still remember every detail of that night. The music playing in the background, the smell of stale beer and cheap cologne, the chatter of people unwinding at the end of a long week. And me, sitting at a high-top table with my friends, just trying to forget about work for a while. It was a Friday night, the first time in months I'd let myself be talked into going out. We chose a local bar near downtown Denver, the kind of place that's not fancy enough to attract tourists but not divey enough to scare off the afterwork crowd. I was mid-laugh at some dumb joke one of my friends cracked when I glanced toward the bar, and that's when I saw her. Rachel. My sister. The golden girl. And she wasn't alone. At first, my brain didn't register what I was seeing. I was so used to picturing Rachel with Mark that it felt like my eyes were playing tricks on me. But there she was, leaning in close to some guy I didn't recognize. And not in a casual way, not in the way you chat with a coworker or an old friend. No, this was different. Her body language, the way she touched his arm, the look in her eyes. It was intimate. Flirty. Wrong. I froze, my smile fading, my drink halfway to my mouth. My friends kept talking, oblivious, while I sat there, heart pounding, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Maybe it's not her, I thought, my stomach twisting. Maybe it's someone who looks like her. But the longer I stared, the more certain I became. It was Rachel. My sister. The same sister who'd stood up in front of hundreds of people and promised Mark forever. And the man she was with? He definitely wasn't Mark. They didn't see me. They were too wrapped up in each other. And then, as if to confirm my worst fear, she reached for him, pulling him close and kissed him. Not a peck on the cheek. Not a friendly hug. A kiss that left no room for doubt. For a second, the whole world seemed to tilt. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My mind raced, searching for an explanation that wouldn't shatter everything I thought I knew. Maybe this is some awful misunderstanding, I told myself. Maybe she's drunk. Maybe he's a friend comforting her. But no amount of mental gymnastics could erase what I'd just seen. I excused myself from the table, mumbling something about needing fresh air. My legs felt like jelly as I pushed through the crowd and stepped outside, the cool night air hitting me like a slap. My heart was still hammering. My thoughts were a jumbled mess. What was I supposed to do? Go up to her right there in the bar and confront her? March up and demand an explanation in front of everyone? I couldn't. I wasn't ready. I needed to know more. I needed to be sure. Because once I opened that door, once I said the words, nothing would ever be the same again. So I did something I'm not proud of. I waited. I lingered near the entrance, watching through the window. And when they left, I followed. Not close enough to be noticed. Just close enough to see where they went, what they did. I felt sick to my stomach, like I was betraying Mark just by knowing this and not doing anything. But I couldn't stop myself. I had to know. They walked down the street, hand in hand like any normal couple. They laughed, stopped for another kiss, completely oblivious to the world around them. Oblivious to me. I felt like I was watching strangers. This wasn't the Rachel I knew, or thought I knew. They stopped outside a hotel, one of those sleek boutique places that charge way too much for the sake of style. And without hesitation, they went inside together. I didn't need to see anything more. The knot in my stomach tightened. This wasn't a fling that had just started. The way they moved together, the ease, the familiarity, this had been going on for a while. I stood there for what felt like forever, staring at the hotel entrance, my mind a whirlwind of anger, betrayal, confusion, and heartbreak. I thought about Mark. Sweet, steady Mark, who'd always treated Rachel like she was the best thing that ever happened to him. Mark, who trusted her completely. Mark, who deserved so much better than this. My phone felt heavy in my hand. I thought about calling her right then, and there, demanding answers. I thought about calling Mark, warning him, trying to protect him from this mess. But I couldn't. I wasn't ready. I didn't know what to say. My whole world felt like it had shifted under my feet. Instead, I walked. I walked for blocks, letting the cold night air try to clear my head. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't outrun the image of Rachel and that man, wrapped up in each other like Mark didn't even exist. I kept thinking about every family dinner, every holiday, every time I looked at their marriage and thought, that's what I want someday. And now, it felt like all of it was a lie. I don't know how long I wandered before I finally headed home. My friends had texted a few times, asking where I'd gone, but I didn't answer. What could I say? Sorry, I just found out my sister's a cheater, and now I'm having a quiet breakdown. When I got home, I sat on my couch in the dark, replaying everything over and over. My emotions were all tangled up. Fury at Rachel, heartbreak for Mark, shame for following them, confusion about what I was supposed to do next. I felt like I was holding a live grenade, and no matter what choice I made, it was going to explode and hurt someone. I kept asking myself the same question. Do I confront her now, while the shock is fresh? Or do I wait until I can think clearly? Part of me wanted to call her and scream. Part of me wanted to pretend I hadn't seen anything at all. And another part, the part that had always been taught to protect the family, to keep the peace, whispered that maybe I should just stay out of it. Maybe it wasn't my business. But deep down, I knew better. I knew that what I'd seen wasn't just a bad choice or a one-time mistake. It was a betrayal, not just of Mark, but of everything our family was supposed to stand for. And no matter how much I wanted to unsee it, to undo it, I couldn't. The truth was out there now, and I had to decide what to do with it. That night, sleep didn't come. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was caught in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. And I knew, no matter what happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed felt like I was carrying a weight no one else could see. Everywhere I went, the image of Rachel in that bar, kissing that man like she didn't have a husband at home, haunted me. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, replaying the moment over and over in my head. I couldn't eat. I couldn't focus at work. My friends noticed something was off, but I brushed them off with excuses. How could I even begin to explain? I was drowning in guilt for not doing something sooner, anger at Rachel for putting me in this position, and heartbreak for Mark, who had no idea the person he trusted most was betraying him in the worst way. I knew I couldn't keep it inside much longer. I had to talk to Rachel. I had to look her in the eye and give her the chance to come clean, to do the right thing. Even though a part of me feared what that conversation might do to us, to our family, I couldn't just pretend I didn't know. I couldn't carry the secret alone. So I texted her. I tried to keep it casual, like I wasn't falling apart inside. I asked if she wanted to grab coffee. It wasn't unusual for us to meet up now and then, so she didn't suspect anything. She replied quickly, cheerful as always, suggesting a little cafe near her office. I stared at her text, the words so normal, so innocent, and felt a fresh wave of bitterness rise up. How could she act like nothing had happened? The morning of our meetup, I felt sick to my stomach. My hands were shaking as I drove to the cafe. I kept practicing in my head what I was going to say, but the words felt clumsy and inadequate. How do you tell your sister you know she's living a lie? How do you start that kind of conversation without everything shattering? When I got there, Rachel was already waiting at a table by the window, smiling, waving when she saw me. She looked perfect, polished, like the woman everyone admired. I stood there for a second, just watching her, wondering how much of what I believed about her had been real. Then I took a deep breath and walked over. Hey you, she said, standing to give me a hug. I let her, though my body felt stiff, awkward. Hey, I managed, sitting down across from her. My heart was racing. My mouth felt dry. We ordered coffee, and she started chatting about work, about some new project she was excited about. I nodded, barely hearing her. My mind was focused on what I had to say, on how to steer the conversation there without making a scene. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I interrupted her mid-sentence. Rachel, I saw you the other night. She blinked, caught off guard. What do you mean? I swallowed hard. At the bar. I saw you. With him. Her face went pale. The smile disappeared. For a second, I saw panic flicker in her eyes, so quick I might have missed it if I wasn't looking for it. She opened her mouth like she was going to deny it, then closed it again. I don't know what you think you saw, she began, but I cut her off. Don't do that. Please. I saw you. I followed you. I know you went to that hotel with him. Don't lie to me. There was a long, heavy silence. Rachel stared down at her coffee, her hands trembling slightly. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, almost a whisper. Okay, fine. You saw what you saw. I felt my breath hitch. Hearing her admit it made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Why, Rachel? My voice cracked. Why would you do this to Mark? He loves you. He trusts you. I don't understand. She finally looked up at me, and there were tears in her eyes. But instead of guilt, I saw frustration. Anger. I wasn't sure. You wouldn't understand, she said, shaking her head. It's complicated. Then help me understand, I pleaded. Because right now, all I see is you hurting someone who doesn't deserve it. She sighed, leaning back in her chair, crossing her arms. Mark doesn't see me anymore, Amanda. I'm invisible to him. He comes home, he kisses me on the cheek, he asks about dinner, and then he's on his phone or his laptop until bedtime. We don't talk. We don't connect. I feel like I'm living with a roommate, not a husband. I stared at her, stunned. So that makes this okay. That makes cheating the answer. I didn't plan for it to happen, she snapped. I didn't go looking for it. But it felt good. To be seen. To feel alive. I deserve that, don't I? Her words hit me like a slap. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You deserve to feel alive? What about Mark? Doesn't he deserve honesty? Doesn't he deserve a chance to fix things, if things were that bad? How can you sit here and justify this? Rachel's face hardened. This doesn't concern you, Amanda. This is between me and Mark. Stay out of it. My stomach twisted. How can you say that? You dragged me into this the moment you let me see it. I can't unsee what I know. And I can't just sit back and watch you keep lying to him. She leaned forward, her voice cold. Don't you dare ruin this. Don't you dare go to him. This is my marriage. My life. You don't get to blow it up because you're feeling self-righteous. I'm not trying to blow anything up, I said, my voice shaking. I'm trying to protect someone who deserves better than this. Mark's family. He's my family. Rachel scoffed. Blood comes first, Amanda. Family loyalty. I'm your sister. That means something. Or it should. I felt tears sting my eyes. It does mean something. That's why I'm begging you, tell him the truth. End this before it gets worse. Before it destroys everything. But she just shook her head, grabbed her bag and stood up. I can't talk about this anymore. Just stay out of it. Please. And with that, she walked out of the cafe, leaving me sitting there, shattered. I stared at the empty chair across from me, my coffee gone cold, my hands trembling. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to protect Mark without destroying my relationship with Rachel. I didn't know how to carry the secret that felt heavier by the second. But one thing was clear. Nothing about this was ever going to be simple. After that awful coffee meeting with Rachel, I felt more lost than ever. I kept replaying every word, every expression on her face, trying to figure out if I'd said the wrong thing, if I could have handled it better. But no matter how I spun it, the truth was still there, ugly and undeniable. Rachel was cheating, and she had no intention of stopping, or of telling Mark. I went home that day feeling like the world had tilted under my feet, like I couldn't trust anything anymore. I barely slept that night. My mind wouldn't quiet down. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face. His smile at family gatherings, the way he'd always been kind to me, the way he looked at Rachel like she was his whole world. The guilt was eating me alive. I didn't want to be the person who wrecked their marriage, but wasn't it already wrecked? And wasn't Rachel the one who did that, not me? I needed someone to talk to. Someone older, wiser, who might help me figure out the right thing to do. So, the next morning, I called my mom. It wasn't an easy decision. Our mom, Diana, had always been close with both of us, but if I was honest, closer to Rachel. Rachel was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. But still, she was our mom. She always said family came first. I thought maybe, just maybe, she could help me see the path forward. Maybe she could be the voice of reason I so desperately needed. I asked if I could stop by, and she said of course, sounding cheerful like she always did. When I pulled up to her house, the same house I'd grown up in, I felt that familiar mix of comfort and dread. I don't know why, but part of me already suspected this wasn't going to go the way I hoped. She greeted me at the door with a warm hug, ushering me inside, asking if I wanted tea. I said no, too anxious to sit and sip tea like this was a normal visit. Mom, I said, my voice trembling a little. I really need to talk to you. It's serious. She sat down, concern flickering across her face. What's wrong, sweetheart? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. It's about Rachel. I saw something. Something I wish I hadn't. Her brows knitted together. What do you mean? I told her everything, about the bar, the man, the hotel. About confronting Rachel, and how she refused to come clean to Mark. I expected shock, maybe disappointment. I expected her to hug me, and tell me I'd done the right thing by trying to get Rachel to tell the truth. But that's not what happened. When I finished, she sat back, crossing her arms, her expression unreadable. And then she let out this little sigh, like I just told her something trivial. Oh, Amanda, she said gently. Every marriage has its ups and downs. Secrets, even. You're young. You don't understand these things yet. I stared at her, my heart sinking. Mom, this isn't some rough patch. She's cheating on him. She's lying to him every day. And you're telling me that's okay. I'm telling you that it's not your place to interfere, she said firmly. Rachel made a mistake. People make mistakes. But what good would it do to blow up her marriage over this? Think about what you're saying. Think about what that would do to our family. Our family? I echoed, incredulous. What about Mark? Isn't he family too? Doesn't he deserve to know the truth? Mom shook her head. Mark's a good man. He doesn't need to know every little thing. Do you want to see him hurt? Do you want to be the reason your sister's life falls apart? You think you're protecting him, but you're not. You're just making everything worse. I felt like I couldn't breathe. How can you say that? Rachel's the one making everything worse. Not me. But Mom wouldn't budge. She reached across the table, taking my hand in hers, her voice softening like she was trying to soothe a child. Honey, I know you mean well. I know your heart's in the right place. But loyalty matters. Family loyalty. We protect each other, even when we mess up. Especially when we mess up. You can't go running to Mark with this. It would destroy everything. And for what? So you can feel like you did the right thing? Sometimes, keeping the peace is the right thing. I pulled my hand back, my stomach twisting. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'd come here hoping for guidance, hoping for support. Instead, I felt like I was being gaslight. Like I was the problem, just for wanting to do the decent thing. Mom, I said quietly, trying to hold back tears. How would you feel if Dad had done this to you? Would you want to be kept in the dark? Would you want people making excuses for him? Her face hardened. That's not the same, and you know it. Your father was different. That's in the past. Don't drag that up now. I blinked, stunned. We never talked about Dad's affairs, another family secret swept under the rug. Maybe that's why she reacted this way. Maybe protecting Rachel meant protecting her own choices, too. I can't believe you're asking me to lie for her, I said, my voice breaking. I'm asking you to protect your sister, she said. Protect this family. Don't let one mistake tear everything apart. Promise me, Amanda. Promise me you'll stay out of it. I shook my head, standing up. I can't promise that. I won't promise that. Her face fell, disappointment written all over it. I'm so sorry you can't see what really matters here. And just like that, I realized how alone I was in this. I thought my mom would help me figure out what was right. Instead, she'd chosen Rachel. Chosen appearances over truth. I left her house feeling more confused, more heartbroken than before. Torn between what I knew in my heart was right and what my family wanted from me. And no matter what I chose next, I knew there would be no going back. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I thought the worst part was discovering Rachel's affair. Or maybe it was hearing her cold, dismissive words at that cafe. Or maybe it was the way Mom sat across from me at the kitchen table, asking me to protect our family's image instead of doing the right thing. But I was wrong. The worst part was what came next, living with the weight of it all. The silence. The pretending. The slow, suffocating pressure that built up day after day until I barely recognized myself anymore. Rachel didn't say much after our confrontation at the cafe. But she didn't need to. The few times we saw each other, at Mom's house for dinner, or when she'd stop by my apartment with some flimsy excuse, it was like there was an unspoken agreement between us. Or at least, she acted like there was. Like I'd silently promised to keep her secret. Like my loyalty was a given. I'd see it in her eyes, that expectation, that entitlement. She'd smile at me, force casual small talk, all while knowing she'd handed me this terrible burden and expected me to carry it for her. There was this arrogance in the way she acted, as if I owed her my silence. As if what she was doing wasn't my business, no matter how much it tore me up inside. And Mom took it even further. After our conversation, she started calling me more often. At first it was under the guise of checking in, asking how I was, if I needed anything, if I wanted to come over for dinner. But it didn't take long for those calls to shift. The guilt trips started small, little comments woven into otherwise normal conversations. I hope you're not still dwelling on all that nonsense, she'd say. Or, Rachel's been through so much. The last thing she needs is more stress right now. And then, as the days passed and I didn't fall in line the way she wanted, the comments turned sharper. I don't know when you became so ungrateful, Amanda. After everything this family's done for you, you'd really think about turning on us like this. Turning on them. That's how she saw it. Not as standing up for what was right. Not as protecting an innocent man from betrayal. No, in Mom's eyes, I was betraying them. The family. I started avoiding their calls, ignoring invites. I couldn't bear to sit at that dinner table, looking at Mark across from me, his eyes kind and trusting, while I kept his wife's secret. I couldn't stand the way Rachel would act like nothing was wrong, making jokes, pouring wine, asking about my job as if she hadn't dragged me into her web of lies. And I couldn't stomach the way Mom would look at me, that mix of disappointment and warning, like I was one wrong word away from shaming them all. Work became harder too. I couldn't focus. I'd stare at my computer screen, emails piling up, and my mind would drift to Mark. To the way he'd pull out Rachel's chair at dinner. To the way he'd bring her coffee, just the way she liked it. To the way he'd always include me, ask about my life, make me feel welcome. And every time I thought about him, I felt sick. Because I was lying to him every single day. The guilt clawed at me. It kept me up at night. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding. My mind racing with what ifs. What if he found out, and I hadn't told him? What if Rachel slipped up, and he learned I'd known all along? What if this destroyed him, and I could have stopped it? But then, just as I'd start to convince myself I had to say something, the other voice would creep in. The voice that sounded too much like Mom's. The voice that reminded me of every family dinner, every holiday, every memory tied to that word. Family. What if I did ruin everything? What if I tore us apart? What if Mom never forgave me? What if Rachel hated me forever? It was a chilly Saturday evening when everything finally came to a head. The kind of evening where the sky feels heavy and the air feels thick with something you can't quite name. Like the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for the moment everything changes. I'd been invited over to Rachel and Mark's house for dinner. Or rather, Mom had guilted me into going, calling earlier that week to remind me how family dinners are important and how Rachel is trying so hard to keep things normal. I didn't want to go. God, I didn't want to go. But saying no felt impossible. So I went. I pasted on a smile, brought a bottle of wine, and told myself I could survive a couple of hours. Mark greeted me at the door like he always did, warm, genuine, like he was truly happy to see me. And that only made the pit in my stomach deeper. I hugged him, trying not to let him feel how tense I was. Inside, Rachel was setting the table, acting the perfect hostess, her face lighting up when she saw me. Look who finally decided to grace us with her presence, she joked, as if there wasn't a storm brewing between us. Dinner was fine. On the surface. We ate, we made small talk, we laughed at old family stories. But underneath it all, I felt like I was drowning. Every time Mark looked at Rachel with that softness in his eyes, it felt like another stone tied to my chest. Every time Rachel touched his arm or smiled at him, I wanted to scream. Because it was all fake. And I was part of the lie now. After dinner, Rachel went to take a call, some excuse about work that I didn't believe for a second. Mark offered me a drink, and we sat out on their back porch. The night was quiet except for the hum of crickets and the occasional car passing in the distance. That's when he spoke. Amanda, he said, his voice low, a little hesitant. Can I ask you something? My heart started to race. I forced a smile. Of course. He stared out at the yard for a moment before looking back at me. Have you noticed anything off with Rachel lately? I mean, she's been different. Distant. I don't know how to explain it. It's like she's here but not really here. I felt the breath leave my body. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Mark ran a hand through his hair, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. I'm probably overthinking it. Maybe she's just stressed. But, I don't know. I guess I'm worried about her. About us. That's when I nearly broke. I felt tears prick at my eyes, and I had to look away so he wouldn't see. The guilt was unbearable. He was opening up to me, trusting me, looking for reassurance. And I was sitting there with this awful, poisonous secret. I'm sure she loves you, I heard myself say, the words tasting bitter and false. Maybe you should talk to her. Really talk to her. He nodded, looking so hopeful it made my heart ache. Yeah, you're right. I'll try. I couldn't take it anymore. I excused myself, claiming I wasn't feeling well, and drove home in a daze. When I got inside, I sank to the floor of my apartment, shaking. I couldn't do this. I couldn't keep pretending. And still I tried. For a few more days, I tried to shove it down, to convince myself I could stay quiet a little longer. That maybe Rachel would come to her senses. That maybe Mark would confront her, and it wouldn't have to come from me. But Rachel only got bolder. I ran into her downtown one afternoon, purely by accident. And there she was with him. The same man from the bar. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. They were holding hands, laughing, looking like a couple without a care in the world. She saw me, and for a split second, her eyes widened. But then she smiled, almost smug, as if to say, "What are you going to do about it?" That was the moment something inside me cracked. I went home, sat on my bed, and thought about everything. About Mark, sitting on that porch, worried and confused, trusting me. About the sleepless nights, the lies, the guilt that had eaten me alive. About the way Rachel had looked at me downtown, so sure of herself, so sure I'd keep covering for her. And I thought about something else too. If the roles were reversed, if I were the one cheating, if I were the one betraying someone, would Rachel protect me? Would she keep my secret out of loyalty? The answer was clear. No, she wouldn't. Rachel had always looked out for herself first. She'd always taken what she wanted, consequences be damned. And here I was, ruining my own peace of mind, my own integrity, to protect her. I realized then that I had to choose. Protect Mark, who deserved the truth, or protect my sister, who didn't. Stay silent and let this lie grow, or speak up and risk losing the family I'd been trying so hard to keep intact. It wasn't an easy decision. It felt like the hardest thing I'd ever have to do. But sitting there, staring at the wall, I knew. I couldn't live with myself if I kept this secret any longer. I picked up my phone, my hands trembling, and made my choice. Where I am now feels like a world away from where this all began. Sometimes I look back and wonder how I managed to carry the weight of it for so long. How I lived with the sleepless nights, the lies, the endless knots of anxiety in my chest. But the truth is, it took breaking before I could finally feel whole again. That night, after I made my decision, I called Mark. It was one of the hardest phone calls I've ever made in my life. My voice shook. My heart pounded, so loud I could barely hear my own words. I didn't go into details. I didn't have to. I told him I needed to see him, that it was important, that it was about Rachel. There was this long pause, like he already knew something wasn't right. Like deep down, he'd been waiting for confirmation of what his heart had been whispering all along. When we met the next day, I told him the truth. As gently as I could, but I didn't sugarcoat it. I owed him that. I owed myself that. And I watched as the hope drained from his face, as his heart broke right in front of me. It was the worst thing I've ever witnessed. But I also saw something else, a kind of relief, maybe, that he wasn't crazy for sensing the distance, the shift, the cracks in what he thought was his perfect life. After that, everything fell apart fast. Mark confronted Rachel. I wasn't there, but he called me afterward, thanking me for my honesty, even though it hurt. Rachel tried to spin it, of course. Tried to blame me, said I'd always been jealous, always wanted to ruin what she had. But Mark saw through it. He always had more clarity than she gave him credit for. As for my family, well, let's just say it wasn't pretty. My mother was furious. She said I'd humiliated the family. She accused me of betraying my own blood, of tearing us apart. She stopped speaking to me for a long while. Rachel? She hates me. I don't think we'll ever be sisters again in any real sense. The last time I saw her, she couldn't even look me in the eye. She called me a traitor, said I destroyed her life. But here's the thing, I didn't destroy anything. Rachel did that all by herself. All I did was stop helping her hide it. It was hard at first, I won't lie. The silence from my family felt like a hole I couldn't fill. Holidays were lonely. Birthdays passed with no calls, no texts. I questioned myself 1,000 times. Wondered if I should have stayed silent, if protecting the peace would have been better. But then something amazing happened. That knot in my chest, the one I'd lived with for months, started to loosen. My anxiety began to fade. I could look at myself in the mirror again and not feel like a fraud. I could sleep. I could breathe. I'd done the right thing, and no amount of guilt-tripping or silence could take that away from me. Mark eventually moved on. He filed for divorce. We don't talk much anymore, but every now and then, I'll get a message from him, a simple thank you, or a note to say he's doing okay. And that's enough for me. I learned so much from all of this. About boundaries. About loyalty. About what family really means. Because family isn't about covering up each other's mistakes. It's not about protecting lies just because you share the same blood. Family should be about love, about honesty, about wanting the best for each other, even when the truth hurts. If you're reading this, if you're watching this, and you're in that same place I was, trapped between doing what's right and protecting someone you love from the consequences of their own choices, I want you to hear me loud and clear. Family loyalty doesn't mean enabling harm. It doesn't mean sacrificing your own integrity to protect someone from the truth. And it doesn't mean carrying someone else's guilt just so they can sleep better at night. If I could go back to that night at the bar, if I could stand beside my past self as I watched Rachel kissing that man who wasn't her husband, I'd put my hand on my shoulder and say, "You already know what you have to do. Be brave. You're stronger than you think." Because I was stronger than I thought. And so are you.